Nuskawemo, Nil Taliwis, Nil Becca. Welcome, my name is Becca. Thank you for joining us for our presentation on the indigenous, medicinal, and ceremonial plants within the UNB Woodlot. We are the medicine walkers. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land for this project is the traditional and unceded territory of the Wabanaki people, also known as the People of the Dawn, consisting of Abenaki, Penobscot, Passamaquoddy, Wolastoqiyik, and Mi'kmaq peoples. This territory is covered by the Treaties of Peace and Friendship, which Wolastoqiyik peoples first signed with the British Crown in 1725. These treaties did not deal with the surrender of lands and resources, but in fact recognized Wolastoqiyik title and established the rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship between nations. This is our footpath of our presentation journey we will be taking today, an introduction of our group members, our clients who have contributed to the development of this project, a description of the project consisting of context, purpose, goals, and deliverables. Further detail on those deliverables, which include a website, medicinal walk trail, interactive map, and educational plant guide, along with a co-management research, and finally, a closing. Our group members consist of Tia, our GIS wizard, Katie on website development, Emma with communications, Maria on booklet development, myself, Becca, and Sue, my other half, as a co-team managers. Throughout our project timeline, we have worked closely with our clients who have been vital to this project to ensure the adequate educational resources and the most meaningful collaborative report research. Without their input, there would be no project. Most importantly, as all projects dealing with land should have Indigenous consultation, we have been working with Ramona Nicholas, an Indigenous archaeologist and Wolastoqiyik knowledge holder, for our Indigenous consultation. From the Forestry of Environmental Management faculty at UNB, we have Ed Sherwinski, the chair of the Creighton Conservation Forest Advisory Committee, Matthew Golding, the Indigenous Outreach Coordinator, and Logan Keowan, the Indigenous Relations Manager. From the MWC at the UNB, we have Caitlin Copage, the Indigenous Experiential Education Coordinator, Starlet Simon, the Indigenous Student Advisor, and Juan Rodriguez Camacho, an Assistant Professor. Now, over to Katie to discuss our project.
Thank you, Beck, for the introduction. My name's Katie, and I'm going to be going into our project description. Our group was tasked with identifying and quantifying the edible, medicinal, and ceremonial plants significant to the Indigenous peoples of the territory. We knew that we could not move forward without proper Indigenous consultation, so before we started any work, we sought out the guidance of an Indigenous knowledge holder, Ramona Nicholas, who graciously agreed to take on our group. The scope of our project takes place within the Creighton Conservation Forest, which is also known as the CCF. The figure shown here highlights the CCF in red in relation to the south side of Fredericton, New Brunswick. To get representative data, we extended our sampling throughout the boundaries of the UNB Woodlot, which is outlined in yellow. But our project remains within the CCF. The CCF is a 632 hectare forest that is designated for conservation and teaching. It is open to the general public, but is mainly used by the University of New Brunswick and the Maritime College of Forest Technology for research and teaching purposes. This project is aimed at UNB students, faculty members, support staffs, but extends to the general users of the UNB Woodlot. Since the CCF is designated for land-based learning, our educational outcomes fit directly into the purpose of the forest. So after pitching our basic project description to the MWC and the chair of the CCF, they accepted our invitation to become our clients. As things progressed and the interest in our project grew, we have continued to take on more clients and extend our resources. We have since developed 5 different deliverables that help fit our clients' goals. So now I'm going to go into the project problem and purpose. Ultimately, our project aims to help the forum faculty on their journey to truth and reconciliation. Specifically, our project aims to solve the lack of Indigenous involvement in the management of the Creighton Conservation Forest and the missed opportunities of teaching about Indigenous knowledge within the faculty's curriculum. We have carefully thought out various deliverables to help solve these problems, bringing us to the overall purpose of our project, which is 1, providing our clients with the inventory of available significant plants within the UNB woodlot. 2, providing our clients and stakeholders with accessible educational resources that can be used in the classroom and in the field. And lastly, providing resources and recommendations that increase the collaborative management of the Creighton Conservation Forest. So the following chart shows how our deliverables fit into our goals. Each deliverable will be gone into further detail later on in the presentation. On the left, we have our overall goal of increasing the Indigenous knowledge and involvement within the 4M faculty. On the right, we have each of our deliverables and how they were derived. So data collection contributed to our educational medicine walk trail and species location map. Additional research contributed to our plant guide and our co-management report. The trail, map, and plant guide are educational resources meant for a broader audience that can be accessed through our 5th deliverable, our Medicine Walkers website. This portion of our project aims to fulfill our goal of increasing the traditional knowledge being included in the curriculum. Our co-management report is mainly for our UNB staff and CCF advisory board clients, and its purpose is to increase the Indigenous inclusion within the management of UNB lands. So now I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about our website, the purpose of it, and what it consists of. So I now encourage all of you to take out your camera's phone and scan the QR code on the screen. This will bring you to our Medicine Walkers website, which can also be accessed through the link medicinewalkers.wixsite.com/project description. This will give you the opportunity to explore the various components of our project as we go through the rest of the presentation. So when you first enter the website, you're greeted with the terms and conditions pop-up. It explains the sensitivity of the information being shared and gives a disclaimer on how to respectfully use the resources that we've provided. Our pop-up mentions two-eyed seeing and sustainability and perpetuity, which are 2 Indigenous teachings that describe how to respectfully and sustainably interact with the land. More information about these teachings can be accessed through the Teachings tab on the main menu. The following photo is from our web browser version of the site, but the same pages can be accessed through the mobile version as well. If you're following along on your phone, the mobile menu should be located on the top right of your device. The homepage of the site gives background on the purpose and intent of our project, and then we have a separate tab for our project's description, group members, and clients. Our Teachings tab explains our group's guiding principles that I mentioned earlier that are traditionally known as Edawaptamunk and Nadugalim. So the educational resources that are directly accessible through this platform are the Medicine Walk Trail map and our Indigenous plant guide. The Medicine Walk tab gives information about the purpose of our trail and the location, and the plant guide tab gives access to a downloadable version of our guide. Each deliverable is a standalone educational resource that encourages users to further their connection with the land. The trail is developed to be a self-led medicine walk where each color represents a different habitat and thus different plant communities. Our guidebook can be used within the trail to get further information on the species of interest, but it can also be used as a textbook-like resource. Each of these deliverables will be explained in further detail later on in the presentation. So I'm now going to hand it over to my partner Tia, who's going to go into the details of these deliverables.
Thank you, Katie. I'm Tia, and in this section, I'm going to discuss our data collection, the methods and the results. I'll present our species location map, and then I'll go into our educational medicine walk. So our inventory contributes to these 2 deliverables, and they're working towards our project goal to increase traditional knowledge at UNB. First, we had to decide what to look for in this inventory. Our clients provided us with a list of species featured in the new Wabanaki Healing Garden in the Fredericton Botanic Gardens, as well as a Mi'kmaq traditional and ecological knowledge review, which explored species utilized by the Mi'kmaq people of Nova Scotia for their edible or medicinal properties. In discussions with our clients, we determined no plant to be of more or less importance, which left us with 83 species of interest. This map just shows the Wabanaki Confederacy and the Indigenous nations within New Brunswick. Our initial inventory covered the entire woodlot, and later the project focused in on the CCF. So to begin with the project design, a point was placed in the center of each unique combination of stand and cover types. For example, we sampled 2 spruce balsam fir stands, one classified as a bog and one classified as a forest. This would ensure the most representative data was collected in our given time frame. At each of these plots, we recorded the presence of species as well as their distribution and abundance. That inventory ran for the month of October, and we were able to locate 46 of our 83 species, but only 30 of those did we find in high or medium abundance. This figure summarizes the frequency of each herb and shrub species, and that's divided into the abundance we found them. We summarized our data in an interactive map that provides the location of species confirmed by our inventory, as well as species predicted by reference plots or their preferred habitat. This map shows the number of confirmed species in each location. As you can see here, our map has 2 main functions: to locate the species of interest or to find out which species are in an area of interest. The purpose of this is to provide information to instructors to teach firsthand of species that may not be represented on our trail. It may also be used by the CCF Advisory Committee in the development of a collaborative management plan. Next up, I'll discuss the Educational Medicine Walk Trail. It's important to mention that this trail is not complete or ready for use at this time, but in this section I'll go through the goals of the trail, how we selected our location and route, and finally the components of the trail. The purpose of this is to provide an interactive approach for instructors to teach and students to learn of Indigenous ceremonial, edible, and medicinal plant species. With this deliverable, we are still working to our project goal to increase the traditional knowledge taught at UNB. In the development of this trail, there were 3 stages, and in each of those stages, we were able to contribute to a different set of our 6 overarching objectives. And I'll go through each stage next. First of all, location selection. We had to look at the trail entrance, and there were 9 possibilities that are shown on this map with their ranking. To determine that ranking, we had 3 objectives. To minimize the distance to public transit, which would accommodate users without cars, maximize parking area to accommodate school bus drop-offs, as well as allow the most visitors at a time. And finally, there would not be a road crossing between the trailhead and the parking lot for safety reasons. We ranked each location based on each objective. For example, if the entrance was within a 5-minute walk of a bus stop, it was given a rank of 1. Within 10 minutes, it was given a rank of 2, and more than that was ranked 3. We added each objective together to give them a final ranking in which lower is better. This explains why there are multiple of a rank and why the lowest rank is a 3. Circled in red here, entrances B, C, and E were carried over to the next steps. E was chosen over A due to parking lot size, and E was also chosen over D due to the large wetland at the entrance of D. As for the actual trail route, the same process was done with objectives specific to the route. First, we wanted as much of the trail inside the CCF as possible. Second, to minimize the wet areas, which was done to reduce the likelihood of bridges missing, ensure the minimum impact and the minimum cost. Third, the distance from roads was considered. This contributes to safety, but mostly the quality of the experience by minimizing the noise and potential garbage from the highway. Finally, we confined our new trail to existing ones to minimize our impact and our cost. And to do all this, we first created a raster for each objective, and then we added these all together, which allowed us to use the least cost path tool to find our best trails based on our objectives. This gave us 40 different alternatives. With those 40 alternatives, we eliminated any that would not create a loop, and that left 11. We had 2 final objectives to look at: maximize the number of species along the route, which would maximize our content, and we were looking for a length around 4 kilometers based on how long that would take the average person to walk and considering time to look at plants or signs. So we eliminated any over 5 kilometers and under 3 kilometers and ranked the remaining 5 alternatives based on the number of species. We then walked our best ranking alternative, and the red one you see is our ultimate choice. So this is our trail. It's 3.7 kilometers long, located across from the Grant Harvey Center off of Knowledge Park Drive. And here's what would be presented in our plant guide. As you saw, a Google Map version of this will also be available under the Medicine Walk tab of the website, which will allow users to select the area they're in and give them a sample of species to look out for without directly pointing them out. So this would increase our content without increasing the risk to conservation. Next, we have developed a suite of components, and here you can see that most of them are included in all of our alternatives or variations of our trail. That is because they're either free or were deemed essential in discussions by our clients. Included in every alternative are exit signs, which would be placed at each intersection, indicating at what point you are in the trail and the fastest way back to maximize safety. QR codes would be included in any signage choice to increase our content without any extra cost. And finally, a disclaimer would be provided at the start of the trail explaining the purpose of the CCF is conservation, thus the trail is not meant to be harvested from, and it will also explain the risk of consuming plants without proper knowledge or training. Additionally, an in-bloom calendar will be available from our website. This tells which species are flowering or fruiting in each month. Now, the difference in our alternatives comes down to signage. We have 2 categories, interpretive signs and tree tags, and the signs come in 2 different materials, alupanel, which is an aluminum composite, and Corex, which would be similar to for sale signs or voting signs. These signs allow for more content, but the tree tags are lower in cost. For some context, alternatives 1, 2, and 4, we've considered 13 signs, 1 per forest type, and alternatives 3 and 4, we've assumed 30 tree tags, 1 per species on our list. We also have a baseline cost of $650 for our exit signs, which we've chosen the more expensive material, but in a smaller size as we want to maximize its longevity. So using structured decision making, number 1 and 4 are our best options, and the main trade-off is adding $235 to the cost, but maximizing both content and longevity. Number 4 is our suggested option. However, it's ultimately up to the clients, and there's always the option to upgrade from just tree tags or just alupanel signs to both if funding is the limiting factor. I will now hand it over to Becca to discuss our educational plant guide.
Thanks, Tia. I will be discussing our educational plant guide. The purpose of this educational plant guide is to fulfill the educational aspect of this project, with the goals to provide educational material on traditional Indigenous knowledge and traditional Indigenous plants. Pictured here is the cover of our plant guide. The guide includes an introduction, which consists of a land acknowledgement, the project description. It also includes the Indigenous teachings at Ewaptamunk and Nadugalimp, and the list of plant species. Finally, it also includes a map of the Medicine Walk Trail. We have developed this educational plant guide for Indigenous plant medicines, teachings, and stories. While this guide is used for information on plant species, it is also an educational tool for Indigenous teachings. The Indigenous traditional knowledge we chose for the guide are Ewaptamunk and Nadugalimp. The idea of including these is to ensure that there is Indigenous consultation and conservation. Again, the purpose for including these teachings is to help outline the term conservation. The guide will discuss the importance of sustainable harvesting and conservation in the form of Ewaptamunk, which is two-eyed seeing, a way to incorporate Indigenous knowledge and Western science that utilizes both concepts. And with Nadugalimp, it is a way of living or a way of life that emphasizes having a reciprocal relationship with the land. These teachings are important to learn so there is land and resources available for future generations. The guide we have developed has the plant species listed with common name, scientific name, and translations of Wolastoqey, Mi'kmaq, and French, along with their habitat, some traditional uses, and level of toxicity where applicable, as shown on the left. We chose these languages as they are the primary languages within this territory. We have included lovely photos of the plants and trees. Plant descriptions, such as the one on the right, will have stories, as storytelling is an important traditional way of knowledge sharing for Indigenous peoples. As mentioned before, the website will have a guide available as a downloadable copy or print version. Now I will discuss our collaborative management research. In the spirit of peace and friendship treaties, we put together research on collaborative management for the CCF. Since the UNB Forestry Environmental Management faculty is on their journey of truth and reconciliation to decolonize the teaching and management processes, and due to the lack of Indigenous consultation and involvement within the CCF, we decided to compile a report in efforts to inform and develop a path to better relationships and management. The CCF status quo is no management plan nor Indigenous consultation or involvement. The purpose of this co-management research is to discuss what it is, why it is necessary, and of course the benefits. Specifically, this research is to encourage a working relationship between the CCF and Indigenous communities, as the CCF lands are on Wolastic territory. Again, as stated before in the land acknowledgement, no lands were ceded nor surrendered, reiterating the importance of co-management processes. It can also be used as a reference for our clients in future resource sharing and Indigenous reconciliation projects. The goals of this research is to provide clients with information on co-management, how to meaningfully increase Indigenous involvement in the management processes of the CCF, while utilizing the treaties signed between nations as the end goal for this relationship building process. And finally, to recommend the next steps for moving forward. For the methodology, we interviewed people who have experience with co-management to get their advice on what meaningful Indigenous involvement looks like in order to provide research that is credible and useful for our clients. We have consulted with various Indigenous and non-Indigenous experts in co-management and have included these perspectives in this research. These discussions included what it means to have successful co-management and what is considered to be meaningful Indigenous involvement in the management process. We utilized the peace and friendship treaties as a baseline for co-management, as these treaties were meant to be an ongoing relationship between nations. Furthermore, our research is on existing examples, not just limited to New Brunswick or Canada, but all around the world, focusing on co-management guidelines and use them as different alternatives to add to the current status quo to provide recommendations. After analyzing the interviews and reviewing research, we discovered there were repeated themes discussed. These were 1, an open communication to facilitate a meaningful relationship between parties involved. 2, transparency for clear agreements. And 3, treaty honoring to understand the treaties and how to have a reciprocal relationship with the land. We would like to recommend the CCF establish seats specifically for Wolastic Traditional Grand Chief, Wolastic Nation of New Brunswick as a representative of elected band Wolastic chiefs, the UNB Forum Faculty position of Indigenous Relations Manager, the UNB MWC, and finally a seat for elder representation. Furthermore, we would like to recommend that the CCF committee meet regularly to have open and regular communications. In closing, we have our overall next steps. These steps are set in place for this project to continue as we bring our time on this journey to an end. While the interactive map will be complete, the Medicine Walk Trail, Plant Guide, website, and collaborative management research will be handed over to our clients for implementation and enhancement. We would like to take the time to acknowledge the contributions to this project. Woliwa Nugawas Skitkamig Chopsudageg. Thank you, Mother Earth, for everything. Thank you for the availability of plants and trees for medicine, food, and ceremony. We would also like to thank our clients for their involvement in this project. Jay Ogilvy and Galen McMonigal for their technical support, the individuals that were interviewed for their valued insight, and finally, our professor, Dr. Ted Needham, for his support along the way. Thank you. Waliwin, Walalin, thank you, merci. If you have any questions and think of them at a later date and time, you can always email us at medicinewalkers@gmail.com. Thank you.